All right. It says we are recording, so
Oh yeah, I can see it live. There it is. It's
oh, good
yeah.
deal. Theme music. All right, y'all. It's that time again. 40 Watt Podcast. This is Phillip coming to you. We're recording on a Monday night. This is going to go out on Tuesday. This is as close to live as you get from me right now. I'm really excited. So, got my buddy Desmond on. The first time actually we're getting to talk in person, as I was we were talking earlier, but it's the first time we've actually met. We've been Facebook friends, following social media, and we run in the same circles. But don't think our paths have actually crossed, at least not that I'm aware of. Maybe you walked by a bar I was playing, or I walked by a bar you were playing, something along those lines. But I started following your social media. One, you're from Mississippi. You live in Muscle Shoals now, I believe. But you post and work on some of the coolest guitars I've ever seen. And so I had to get you on, talk about vintage guitars, talk about just cool guitars, maybe that nobody's talking about, and just and talk about your playing, how you got into music. So give us the story. How'd you get into it?
Well, thank you, Phillip, for having me. It's an honor to be here on the podcast. And well, like a lot of kids, I got into guitar because some friends of mine got guitars, and it all simultaneously happened. In and around the sixth grade, I was probably 11 or 12 years old. One thing that happened is my dad got me into Led Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, he did. I don't know, like, when parents get their kids into music, I'm not really sure if they're like really thinking that through sometimes. But
parents who get their kids into Pink Floyd, it's like, do you really know what?
Yeah, right. You do realize what you're biting off there. Yeah. So my dad got me into, and at that time I was already into music. Like any, I'm 38 years old, so any sixth grader in like 1994 or 95, whenever that was, would have obviously been into Nirvana.
Right.
Weezer's Blue album had come out, which was huge.
Yeah. I'm about a year and a half, 2 years older than you, so it's about the same.
So you get it. Green Day had just kind of come out. I mean, MTV back then, all they did was play music, music videos. So, but my dad got me into Led Zeppelin and Tom Petty and some country stuff. But the other thing that happened too is two friends of mine had gotten guitars, two of my best friends, and one of them, they were both great guitar players. One of them still plays and is still a great guitar player, but one of them was good like right away. And I just remember being like, man, that is so cool. And so for Christmas, seventh grade, I got my mom and my grandmother, as like a simultaneous Christmas gift. How you get, sometimes Santa Claus and your mom and your grandmother kind of all come together to make it happen.
As someone with a December birthday, I know all about those combined gifts.
Sure. You know how that rolls.
Yeah.
So I got for Christmas, me and my brother, both actually, my little brother Hunter, we both got Squire Strats and like the Squire Strat pack with like the amp and the cable, and it came with a tuner, and Hunter was good like right away. He had so much natural inclination to like music and playing, and man, I do not have that gift. It just was not bestowed on me. I mean, it's taken me, I've been playing for over 20 years, and it just feels like it's been talk about being in it for the long haul. I mean, God, I work at it all the time, and I progress so slowly, but anyway, but like with my brother and like with several other friends who got guitars, they just didn't, it didn't have the kind of effect on them that it had on me. I mean, I immediately latched onto it like a way for like a form of therapy.
Yeah.
You know, it became like my best friend. You hear about like Mark Knopfler, slept with his guitar when he was a kid, and Jimmy Page and I did the same thing. I didn't even know that they had. I thought I was like a weirdo because I literally fall asleep with the guitar in the bed. And man, just talk about it dominated every part of my life then, and it does now today. Some people would probably say to an unhealthy degree, but that said, I've turned like playing guitar and working on guitars and being obsessed with everything about them. I've turned that into a way to earn a living, and I'm proud of that. I'm literally, I had a dream, and I'm getting to do that, and it's insane. I wake up some days and it doesn't even seem like real life.
Yeah, you get to, everybody thinks the musician life or the guitar life or whatever we want to call it. Guitar life doesn't fit on the knuckles, so it doesn't make a good tattoo. But
sure.
But everybody thinks, oh, well, the only way you do that, you get in a band that plays 200 dates a year, or you get a gold or platinum record, and there are so many other ways to make a living with a guitar in your hands. And it's not how I do it anymore. It's how I did it for a little while, but it's a hard life. It's not an easy life.
Sure.
Even at that highest level, even at that highest, like, I guess I should define levels. Even at that highest income level, sometimes the highest income level is not always the same as the highest like musical level.
For sure. Oh man. Yeah, dude. I mean,
but
look at a guy like Jack Pearson, probably one of the greatest guitar players on planet Earth. He shows up to gigs with a $199 Squire Strat. He'll tell you got to go hunt out the Indonesian made ones. Those are the ones with all the tone. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, come on. Yeah. I know guys that can barely play. I mean, they can literally barely play guitar, and they make, hundreds of $1,000s a year, in bands. And
whereas when I used to run sound at Ground Zero for years, I was the audio engineer there. I'd have bands come through, and the guitar player would come in with his Squire or his like cheapest Epiphone they make through a PV Bandit and play circles around any sound anybody else has ever come in there with. You know what I mean?
For sure. 100%. Gear is just a very, very, very small part of it, man. Just a very, very, a great guitar. We were talking about an amp before we went live,
I'll bring them back up here in a minute.
I was telling you about this really incredible guitar, couple of just amazing guitars I picked up just this past week. Gear, yes, an incredible guitar, an amazing amp. That stuff helps. It's doesn't hurt anything, but man, if you can't play, you can't play, and if you can't sound good, you can't sound good. Yeah, absolutely. And some folks just don't. They just don't have whatever that thing is,
And some people are the other way. You're talking about your brother. I have a sister who is an absolute natural at everything musical she's ever tried to do. She decided to pick up, she started on drums first. She started on drums about the age of 9. There's a 10.5-year difference between her and I. So she's at 9. I'm at almost 20. I didn't take up guitar till I was 18. So we started music about the same time.
Wow.
So like you and your brother, but we were just not that close in age. She took up drums, then decided to take up guitar, and then just became a monster at it. Decided to start singing, was amazing at that, started writing songs. She could not tell you the first thing about effects pedals, about guitar amps, about guitars. She doesn't know. She's got a Strat that she has played for years that was gifted to her. She has an amp that she understands volume and tone, and that's what she's got. She plays a Hot Rod Deluxe, and that's just what she does. Yeah, I think we finally taught her which direction to plug guitar pedals in. She was fine once she got them plugged in, but holy shit, the music she can make.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you want her to do, want her to sing, want her to write, want her to, she makes incredible music. Has no idea how any of the gear works.
One of the bands that I guitar tech for, Cage the Elephant, you know, you have two guitar players in that band. Nick Bockrath, who's not an original member, but has been with them for several years now in the last few album cycles. And so he is a member of the band. He's not like a hired gun. He writes a ton of the songs. He's an incredible guitar player. I feel like he understands gear to like a certain degree, though. He's not like that big of a gear head. I mean, he's into it, but not like the way a lot of folks are obsessed with it.
Sure.
But what he is he's an incredible guitar player. Now, the other guy that plays guitar in the band, Brad Schultz, that's Matt and Brad are the two brothers in the band, original members. They started the band back before it was even Cage the Elephant. Brad is this weird thing because he's not super technical on guitar. He plays, you know, Mustangs with, you know, with flat wound, heavy gauge flat wound strings. He's not like what I would consider like this crazy gear guy either. And he's not like virtuistic at guitar in the sense that we think about all the time.
Sure. He's not a guitar hero kind of.
Sure. But he comes up with some of the dopest shit you've ever heard. And there's a reason why that band has won Grammys for Best Rock Album a few times now. And why they've got these massive songs and these songs that are so catchy. And so you hear them one time and you sing them in your head all day long. And there's a reason why that band is so fucking amazing. Yep. And it's because they're not diluted down by any of that other shit. They're just all there. It's just this creative flow, this outlet for them. And that's all it is. And you know, and so again, and they've got some amazing gear. We take some badass stuff out on the road. We've got some great guitars. Brad's into like this crazy tube preamp amplifier system. You know, forever he was on like Twins and Supersonics. You know, just his stage volume is brutally loud. It's brutal.
I bet.
The only guy in the band that's not on ears. You know, the rest of the guys are all on ears. He's got this really intense monitor, you know, set up in front of him. And, you know, again, I mean, he plays his guitars way up high, and, you know, we go in for rehearsals, and I'm just absolutely amazed, just blown away by like the sounds and the tone he gets. And Nick couldn't be further end of the spectrum. And Nick's just this prolific player, great slide player. He's playing all the melody and parts and the solos and everything, you know, and you just get two guys like that and they come together. And then everybody in that band, by the way, I mean, like, you know.
Oh yeah. They're all killer players.
Dude, they're insane.
And you know, it's worth talking about and sort of bringing up a topic here, because I see this, you see it on Facebook, you see it on guitar forums, you see it on any kind of music, just outlet, social media. The musicians that come out there, and yeah, they don't play virtuosically. They don't play, is that a word? Whatever. I'm going to use it. They you know, they're not the guitar hero. They're not the super technical players. Hell, they may do nothing but play cowboy chords all night long. But there's an, oh, I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it. There's this authenticity in the way they play, and then the way that their musicality and the way they express themselves, that, you know, they don't really need to be that virtuoso player.
Sure.
You know, not putting it on the same level, but, you know, Tom Waits doesn't have to go out there and shred guitar solos. You know what I mean? He can strum a guitar and it works.
Right.
Because that's the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I think it's equal parts. I think it's all, you know, when you spread it across the spectrum. A minute ago, we were talking about, you know, how I got into guitar and got into music. I was, you know, 11 or 12 years old. I'm in the 6th grade. Weezer, Green Day, you know, Nirvana, and then I found out, you know, when I found Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, and obviously my dad got me into Led Zeppelin, and then Jimi Hendrix, and then Stevie Ray Vaughan, which took me down the. Then by the time I'm in high school now, and I became obsessed with blues music, especially Mississippi blues. I just became obsessed with that whole, just the culture and the fact that it was homegrown. It was from right there where I was from.
And it's still here. That's the other
Sure,
thing.
absolutely. Still, yeah, for sure.
I talked about this on the podcast with Eric Deaton. I don't know if you know about Eric.
I know Eric. Yeah.
So I had him on the podcast and we get to talking about how, you know, that blues culture, that Mississippi blues brought him from North Carolina to here because it's still here.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
They were playing inspired by stuff over in North Carolina, and there's a ton of bands over there that played that blues inspired stuff.
Sure.
Eric picked up and moved to Mississippi because it's still happening here.
Right. Absolutely.
Like we talked about earlier, we're going to talk about this guitar in here in a second because it's super cool. But we talked about Honeyboy Edwards and how he's just one of the coolest people I've ever met in my entire life. Sat down in front of a building in Clarksdale and just sat and listened to him talk for a little while, you know?
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, if you want to understand blues music, there are 2 biographies you need to read. And one is Honeyboy Edwards, The World Don't Owe Me Nothing.
Yeah.
Read that one and then read back to back. I mean, go straight into I Am the Blues, Willie Dixon's biography.
Cool.
And that's it, because both of them were Mississippi guys, homegrown, cut their teeth here, both moved to Chicago, and Honeyboy Edwards, you know, ruled a stage in South Chicago in the grit and the dirt and the grime of the blues clubs in Chicago. And Willie Dixon ended up in North Chicago with all the harmony blues and all of the arrangement and chess records and the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
It's so cool that culture's still here.
I'll tack on too, if it's okay. There's 2 other books, and I'm going to add a third one too, even though it doesn't have anything to do with blues.
Oh, you're fine.
There's 2 other books. B.B. King's Autobiography is fucking unreal. It's just fun. It's so, man, when he talks about growing up and being a kid in Indianola, Itabena, that little part of Mississippi where he's from. Oh Lord, man, God dang!
Write these down so I can remember to put links down in the
yeah. You can't even imagine what some of the shit he went through as a kid. But man, just to his life, just for him to get where he got. So that one, and then basically kind of the very similar story. Buddy Guy's autobiography is just heavy, dude. I mean, this guy was like a blues guitar badass in the 50s, influenced everybody from Jimi Hendrix to Eric Clapton. And by like the late 70s, early 1980s, he was driving a tow truck in Chicago. You know, he just completely quit playing guitar. Yeah, was totally forgotten about, you know. And but man, just their stories are so amazing. And then if you really like to read books about people's lives and their stories and their journeys, I'm going to add one more too. All right. Another really great one is Willie Nelson's autobiography. It's the newest one that he just put out. His story is just amazing, and that book is super inspiring to read.
I think I have that one over here on the shelf somewhere. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. And if you just want to read something that's just like absolutely fascinating, will transpose time, will take you somewhere else, Bob Dylan's Chronicles is just.
I've got that one over there on the shelf too. That's a fucking amazing.
It's incredible, man. I mean, just it does not even seem real, you know, and yet it is. It's the story of his life, you know, in the early part of his life when he moved to New York City and just everything that happened. And it's incredible, man. It's insane.
I watched a documentary on Netflix. Pretty sure it was on Netflix. There are so many streaming services now, I can't keep them straight. Anyway, though, It was all about that crazy tour Bob Dylan did.
The Rolling Thunder review on Netflix.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's so wild. It's so incredibly wild.
Yeah.
The stuff that was going on, and like we think we know rock stars. We think we know what that life was like. No, it was a whole other thing. It was just like they'd roll into a city and then meet a friend and be like, hey, come on, hop on with us. Suddenly there's another part to the act. Hey, we're rolling through. Oh, so-and-so is going to be in this state. We're going to pick them up. And it was this huge traveling circus of musicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dylan's story, I think, sometimes gets boiled down and distilled a little too much into his songwriter role.
Sure.
And people forget this was a road dog who was out there playing and changing the world.
Not just that, but he was just this kid from fucking Michigan.
Yeah.
This tiny little podunk town. He changed his name. He hitchhikes to New York City. He changes his name. On his way there, he comes up with this elaborate backstory about hitchhiking all over the country and being friends with Woody Guthrie, living out in Gallup, New Mexico, and writing
all those things that I didn't know were made up for most of my life.
Those are all lies. He made all that up. And it doesn't even matter because he gives it to you in such a great way. You don't even care if he's lying. It's more fun to believe this, but at the same time, he's just this kid and he refers to God in an interview on a 60 Minutes interview as the great commander. And he just talks about, being like just a medium almost.
Oh, wow.
And everything just come from a place. He calls it a wellspring of creativity.
That is, he's such a wild figure.
I know. And they say that the interviewer asked him something like, do you think you can be creative like that again? And he's like, no, probably not. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I mean, I did it once. Just how can you not love that dude?
I know it.
He does not care.
I love the fact that, and I tell people this all the time, and this is one of my favorite bits of trivia, like completely just tossed out there. Trivia. I'm like, you guys realize Jimi Hendrix was a one-hit wonder, right? He had one charting hit, and it was a Bob Dylan song all along the Watchtower. It's like
crazy.
It's a wild world we live in. But the story of all those guys, I've got. I could talk about books all day long. I am a librarian. I've covered that in the podcast before. It's what I do. So you get into the blues, you get into that going on here. You can't miss it. It's such a huge. I mean, I'm from Clarksdale, so it definitely was just. It's in the blood. You can't avoid it.
For sure.
I started playing guitar at 18, like I said. Instead of my dad telling me, which, I didn't get any music from my dad. He was never really a part of the picture. But I had another friend of mine who played guitar named Marshall Drew. And Marshall is the best guitar player I've ever known in my entire life. And I've known a ton of guitar players.
Yeah.
Marshall's an unknown kid from Clarksdale. I call him a kid. He's in his 30s now, whatever. He's best guitar player I've ever known. Always knew how to play the right note at the right time. There was a time when Paul Butterfield, oh God, I'm going to get this wrong and I'm going to put this podcast out there and be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Paul Butterfield's son, was coming through Clarksdale and like sat in on a jam, and Marshall played guitar for him for a little bit. And like the guy immediately was like, I need you to go on the road with me.
Mm-hmm.
And Marshall's like, nah, it's just not his bag. It's not what he wanted to do,
There's a guy that I know from Meridian, Mississippi. He's probably in his mid 40s. His name is Joel Hamilton. He calls himself Crash. He was a Marine, a police officer, a lawyer. Now I think he works in a nonprofit, helps get kids off the street. He's one of the most badass guitar players literally on the planet. He's got a record out. You can find this guy's music. He's out there. But it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's just he's from Meridian. He lives in Nashville now. I'm almost positive.
Okay.
He just flew under the radar, you know?
Yeah. Marshall has a record out, but if you listen to it, you're never going to hear any of like the guitar fireworks. It's very singer-songwriter, but it's fantastic. But he was the guy who I grew up, you know, I had an actual record player. I'm 40 and I realized that tapes were a thing. CDs were a thing when I was still under 10, but my family had an 8-track and a record player. And my first records were Willie Nelson, Redheaded Stranger. And, you know, there was a Waylon Jennings album that I don't even remember what it was. And cassettes in the car were like Patsy Cline and stuff like that. So that's what I grew up listening to. Pushed that into 90s country. That was all I listened to. And then I met Marshall. And Marshall was like, oh, no. Led Zeppelin here. It's like Black Crowes here.
Yeah.
Started tossing this stuff. Black Crowes to this day are still my favorite band of all time. He was also the guy that got me into Tolkien. So whatever.
Yeah.
You know, huge book nerd. But
I think the Black Crowes are underrated.
Yeah.
That's how good I think they are. I think they're actually underrated.
And I will fight anybody.
They're so fucking good, man. And they've had some of the best guitar players on the planet have played in that band.
Southern Harmony Musical Companion, I think, is the greatest complete album ever written and recorded. Sure. It's nuts, and it followed up their biggest commercial success. Mm-hmm. And I love this because, in no disregard, I'm not even going to say the name of the original guitarist. You can look it up. But so between the first album, the commercial successful album, they do Southern Musical, and they hire Mark Ford.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's just unreal.
Oh
he's
my God.
Unreal.
And they're interviewed after this album's recorded, and like the interviewers asking them something along the lines of, you know, that first album was really like commercial rock and roll, radio friendly. This new album's kind of expansive, classic rock, you know, jam bandish. What happened? What changed the sound? And Chris Robinson said, well, we got a guitar player who could play.
Yeah, that will do it.
Yeah,
guys
the whole sound of the band.
Guys that can reel it in, guys that know how to put everything. Guys like Mike Campbell, who can put some of the best guitar playing you've ever heard, some of the most memorable, melodic, wonderful, beautiful, toneful playing, and pack it into 3 minutes. With a guy like Tom Petty, who writes as good a songs as Bob Dylan ever wrote.
Yep.
I mean, just he you know, just I mean, yeah.
They're Petty and Dylan are very much to me in the same ballpark as far as songwriting.
For sure.
And to follow it up, I tell people all the time, one of my biggest influences, and like if I had a choice, like if I could put a band together, I'd want to sound like the Wallflowers.
Oh man,
Dylan's a killer.
That first record they put out, I still go back and listen to that. It's so good. Hey, Mike Campbell plays on that record.
Yes, he does.
He's playing slide guitar on 6th Avenue Heartache.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's Mike Campbell.
See, and then I finally got to see Jakob Dylan live, and it wasn't even, I didn't even know he'd be there. Like, sure. He wasn't with the Wallflowers. I was down, we played South by Southwest. We weren't like South by Southwest. We were part of like the Fringe. Anyway, we played down there. And I went to Antone's because Grace Potter and the Nocturnals were playing. And this had to be in 2011, maybe 10. Anyway, probably 11. And opening up for Grace Potter was the Courtyard Hounds, which was, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it's the sisters in the Dixie Chicks.
Oh, cool.
It was their band that they put together when Natalie, the lead singer, decided she wanted to get off the road.
Okay.
Well, they decided they weren't done playing. And so they started. One lives in, I think one lives in San Antonio, one lives in Austin, and they started like passing music back and forth and decided, hey, let's just make a record. And they formed a band, and Jakob Dylan sings on one of their songs. So he shows up at Antone's during South by Southwest singing. Oh, it's so cool. I
bet David Grissom was playing guitar with them that night.
Oh man, I wish I could remember. I've got
the guitar player in the Dixie Chicks. I'm almost positive. I hope I'm not misspeaking.
Yeah, but I've got pictures. I could go back.
Yeah, he's an incredible guitar player. He's got a signature model with PRS, the DGT, David Grissom signature model, and he did a True Tone Lounge episode that's just phenomenal. He kind of goes through his whole story, you know, with Zach and yeah, but there's so many amazing videos. He's got really great records, his own stuff out there. There's a guy, while we're talking about David Grissom, there's a guy in Mississippi, another guy in Mississippi named Daniel Carlish.
Oh, Daniel Carlish. I know Daniel because Marshall's son, my friend Marshall, his dad, it was a fixture in the 60s, 70s music scene. Big Birds fan. They did Zeppelin and, you know, like they did all that cover stuff in the 60s, 70s. They had a band called The Remains. I want to say that's right. Anyway, so he owns the music store over there in Clarksdale, Bluestown Music.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I've been there before.
So that's how I met Daniel. Daniel came in selling off a bunch of gear to move to Nashville.
That sounds about right.
Daniel, he sold off all this vintage gear to move and live up there. And Daniel is what happens when someone sits down and decides, I'm going to do nothing but be the most badass guitar player you've ever heard. And he did. He's incredible.
He's insane. It's just a perplexing thing. You start to realize how much luck is involved, how much of just, it's almost like the perfect place at the perfect time. And now too, I will say this, now too, with how dominant social media is in our lives and how quick we get information via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I mean, I don't have the newer, you know, what kids, I guess that's TikTok's like a kid thing to me. I don't have that, but you know, I remember when Instagram was, you know, first hit the scene 2011, I think, or 2012. I mean, I've had it for several years now, but I mean, I think that has definitely helped. I think that like my buddy Ariel Posen and guys like Joey Landreth and guys like Blake Mills, and you know, there's so many. I mean, God, and there's so many. Man, Instagram is just chock full of incredible guitar players. My friend,
guitar heroes are coming from. That's where today's guitar.
Yeah, they are. That's where they're at. You're right. But you know, it's kind of sad in a way, because my guys like Daniel Carlish, you know,
he's not going to get on Instagram and start playing guitar.
No, he's not. He's not going to do that. He's too old. It's too far past his thing. It's not how he grew up.
Yep.
You know, but I would take Daniel Carlish and put him up against anybody, and he'd probably smoke their ass. I mean, they would be like, holy shit.
I'm not even sure if those early Kudzu Kings records that he's on are on Spotify.
I don't know if they are either. Yeah, and I always forget he was in that band. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, that was roots rock royalty over here in Mississippi.
Sure.
Everybody had seen Kudzu Kings live.
I haven't seen or talked to Daniel in a long time, but you know, if anybody's out there that, you know, knows him, you know, tell him I said hello. Daniel really changed things for me as a guitar player, because when I moved back to Tupelo in the mid 2000s, I'd been living out in California and I came back home. There was for a very short period of time, there was this really incredible vintage guitar shop right in downtown Tupelo. Matt and Mike Gillentine had this shop, Main Street Vintage. The shop was mostly stocked by this gentleman named Mark Hell. He had a guitar shop originally in Tupelo called Pro Concert. Okay. And then he had a guitar shop in Lakeland, Mississippi, I believe. But Mark was real big in the vintage guitar world. And I don't know how he knew Matt and Mike Gillentine. They are from Tupelo, and they have a sister named Ramona who I'm friends with. But they had this little guitar shop, vintage guitar shop, right in downtown Tupelo. And Daniel Carlish was living in Tupelo at the time, and he taught lessons there. And I didn't know anything about playing guitar. Literally, I was 25 or maybe 26 years old. I had started playing when I was 13. I'd never had a guitar lesson. Everything that I could play on guitar was what I had been able to figure out on my own. And I am a pre-YouTube generation.
Right.
And I'm 38 years old. I was born in 1982. I mean, we didn't even get the internet until I was in high school, and it sucked. It barely worked. You learned what you could learn from people around you and what you could pick out with your own ear. But man, when I met Daniel, I remember he said something to the effect of, he said, man, you have really good feel and you've got phenomenal vibrato. So you've got two of the things that you can't even teach anybody. You have that in spades on your own. You figured that out somehow. You've got that, but you don't know shit about anything else. And he was right, because I didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
Especially theory, chords, the way music works, nothing.
Right. Because you don't learn that stuff just picking it out on your own. You have to have someone explain
it to you. Yeah. The first thing he did, which was just a game changer, life-changing moment for me, is he sat me down and he explained, well, it's funny, actually, Daniel's an incredible dobro, lap steel, like pedal steel guitar player too. First of all, just so people have a grasp of who Daniel Carlish is, you can find him on YouTube. There are some videos of him out there. He does have a record. I think the record might even be called Volume and Tone, because those are the only two things he has on his amp. He has a record. It's phenomenal. He's a left-handed guitar player. He takes a right-handed Telecaster, totally strung up like a right-handed guitar, and he flips it over and he plays it upside down, like with the skinny strings on top, like that. But he's also a phenomenal lap steel, pedal steel player. And so I had gotten this really cheap dobro, and I just wanted him to just give me some basic lessons on the dobro. But in us doing that, because the first thing he was like, okay, first thing with a dobro, you need to learn your major and your minor scale on that high E and that high B string. And
yeah,
he said, do you know your major or minor scale? Nope. Okay, well, that's a good place to start then, I guess. And so within just a couple of dobro lessons, I said, Daniel, dude, I'm a really terrible guitar player. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what anything is. I don't know. I literally know nothing. Everything that I've just had a guitar, and I learned how to play cowboy chords, and I knew somehow along the way I had figured out that, like, if you were in the key of A, you could play the pentatonic scale there at the 5th fret where, like, the A bar chord is.
Uh-huh.
So I played minor pentatonic over everything. Oftentimes like if the song was in A major, I would play A minor pentatonic, like it sounded horrible. I mean, it's like the worst guitar playing ever. I had no concept at that point that if you would either play A major because you're in the key of A major, or you would play an F sharp minor because that's A's relative minor. And that is what Daniel Carlish sat me down and revealed to me. He was like, it's never seemed odd to you that when you're playing in G, you've got that all, if someone just hammers down a G major chord, that you can play all this E minor blues stuff over that. Or that if you stretch that scale out a little bit, it starts to sound like bluegrass. Or that you can go all the way down to the 12th fret and play the E minor pentatonic scales. That never ever seemed odd. And I was like, man, I just never really thought about it.
Right, exactly.
Said, well, that's because E minor is G major's relative minor, and that's why it works. And man, that was in 2007, I think, or something in that, somewhere around that time. And I've literally been on that journey for over 10 years now. I mean, for this whole last decade, I've been, that's it from me. It's all the it connects everything, you know? And now my big thing is trying to understand the way chords work and the way chord melodies and chord tones and everything, the way it all lays on top of each other. And just, man, the guitar is it's a mystery. It's a beautiful mystery.
I was while we were talking, I was trying to find Daniel's record.
Yeah, is there anything? Is
Gain Tone.
Gain Tone. That's what's on his damn. A gain control and a
Facebook page, and it is criminal. 290 people like it. That's
it.
And like a ton of them are my friends because we all know, you know. And you got to hear that guy play. He's a monster.
He's unreal. It's unreal. He's just so special. And I don't know if he just never got, you know, I just don't know, man. I think so much of it is just very good luck. I mean, obviously, let me just go back because I mentioned in not that I don't even know if Ariel will even hear this, but if he does, or if someone's like, "Oh, I heard if
Ariel hears this, I'm doing something right." So
yeah, sure. But like, I'm not trying to undercut any of these guys that are like big guitar players on Instagram. They're big guitar players also in real life.
Exactly.
You know, and by all means, they've put in a tremendous amount of work and effort and sacrifice, and it has not been something that was just handed to them.
That's the other thing I was going to mention is that it's obvious that it takes luck, but you got to put in the work first for the luck to do anything.
So much work. Oh my God. I tell people all the time, I've been so incredibly lucky. Some of the bands that I get to work for, you know, 30 Seconds to Mars, Walk the Moon, Young the Giant, Cage the Elephant. This last year before COVID canceled everything, I got hired on as Gary Clark Jr. stage manager. You know, I did a big Dierks Bentley tour, and I've worked with Ryan Bingham, Gavin DeGraw, Needtobreathe. I mean, several artists and bands. I've played guitar too, and tech. I was in this band called Heathen Sons up in Nashville for a few years and made a record with them. I'm really proud of, and had the time of my life playing, you know, rock and roll in a rock and roll band, and I lived in Oxford, Mississippi for several years, and I played in with different people and in different bands in that area. And man, I mean, I'm still playing guitar. Shit, I played more guitar this last year than I have in longer than I can remember. You know, I mean,
with a bunch of bands teching for them.
Right. I mean, yeah, with everything shut down, it was the only thing I had, you know. So, but yeah, I just tell people all the time, you just have when people think they're just going to like move to Nashville, you know.
I moved to Murfreesboro. I went to school at MTSU for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I moved to Nashville. Most people don't know exactly where Murfreesboro. I don't know. Murfreesboro is fucking huge now.
Oh yeah.
Maybe now everybody knows where it is. When I was there from 2002 to 2004, I think the population was something like 75,000. And now it's like 140,000.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's Nashville's just exploded. Yeah,
completely Nashville East. Anyway, neither here nor there. I moved there. I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna get to play guitar. I'm gonna write songs. I'm gonna do the. It was so much work to be able to just sit down and play music with someone else in Nashville.
Yep.
Because that's the business.
Yeah.
You're not putting in the hours, you're going to get destroyed.
Yeah, and left behind. Yeah.
You're not going to go there and things just happen. Nashville's the kind of town that when anyone tangentially in the music industry valets their car. When they get back to their car, there's someone's demo CD in their CD player that they slipped in. You know what I mean? Trying to get their band heard. Everyone plays, everyone sings, everyone writes.
There's a really good buddy of mine that's from also kind of from the Mississippi. He's really from Alabama, but he Fulton, Mississippi was home for a while. Trevor McKay. It's just a world class guitar player. I mean, he's unreal. And he's friends with all these guys that are just bad to the bone. Him and Joey Landreth are really good buddies. And
nice.
He's friends with a lot of, but for years and years and years, and myself included, people were like, dude, you've got to move to Nashville. You've got to go to Nashville. And he did, and he is, and he's doing great. I think he's playing with like Hunter Hayes and doing some, he's playing a ton. He's working all the time, but it's just, there's just no substitute for just, you gotta be out. You gotta be there. You gotta be out there. You gotta be doing something.
Present to win. What
sure.
I hear people say. You got to be present.
And if you're not living in a place like Nashville, which is not what everybody should do, regardless of where you live, if you play music, if you play guitar, or you're in a band, or you write music, or you write songs, you've got to do two things. You have to somehow get that music in front of people, and then you've got to go play that music in front of people.
Yep.
And that is oftentimes the reason why you have people who are just incredible, and they just sit in this little town that they're from, and they never leave. And everyone in that town knows that they're just bad to the bone.
Killers, but
just never going to even hear of them, Exactly. And it's just, and then you've got, I just think about like how there are people who don't know who Jack Pearson is. That's just mind blowing to me, or guys like Tom Britt, or there's so many just incredible, just an insanely talented man. I live down here in Florence, Alabama, Muscle Shoals. Mm-hmm. And there's two guitar players down here and that are very well known, Will McFarlane and Kelvin Holly, but they're not as well known, I think, as like a lot of, and these guys are two of the finest guitar players on planet Earth. I mean, Will McFarlane he's played with literally everyone. He was in Bonnie Raitt's band back in the day, and he's just played with everybody. Kelvin Holly played with Little Richard, Neil Young. I mean, he's out in California. He does sessions out there all the time, and he does a lot of session guitar work here in Muscle Shoals still. But I mean, you can go see both of these guys play every Tuesday night, just about, if they're in town. They play every Tuesday night at this club right here in town, and it's free.
Yeah.
All you have to do
is just show up.
It's just show up. They have this little gig called Fathers and Sons, rightfully so, because it's them and then their kids, and then lots of people come and sit in, and you're just talking about, these guys have done more than most of us could ever dream of accomplishing as far as like with an instrument, as a player. And they're just here hanging out. They come over to my house sometimes and mess with my gear, and I'll get a new guitar and they'll come by. I just missed Will McFarlane literally just randomly stopped at my house today, and I'd missed him by 2 minutes because I was on my way to drop some guitars off at a local shop and pick some more up that need to be worked on. I mean, it's just like that. It's just crazy. It's just weird. It's just like a weird.
Well, so I think we're gonna see, and there's a lot of people making this speculation. I think just the way music industry was going before COVID ever happened, then plus COVID, you're seeing, as for example, I was in school for music industry sorry, can't completely went blank. Recording industry management at MTSU. And I think it was while I was there that EMI folded. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is the label that had the Beatles. You know?
Right.
They're done. And you're starting to see it. And I had made this prediction back then, and I had said, when I went back, I came back and went to Delta State for music and audio engineering. And one of our instructors was Norbert Putnam, who, that's a Muscle Shoals guy.
Yeah.
Norbert, like one of his best friends, he would tell a story. One of his best friends in the world was George Harrison.
Right. He lives over here again now, right?
He's back over there. I don't know. I actually don't know.
He is. I'm almost positive he is.
But we were in class and we were just talking about the state of the music industry because this is, like right on the edge of like Napster and pirating and everything happening, because this is like 2007, 2008 ish. And we get to talking about it. And so he was asking us, most of our classes with Norbert never happened out of a book. They just were him talking and us talking about things. And I think, and I thought then, and I think we're absolutely seeing it happen. So broken clock is right twice a day kind of situation. But the days of the national artist, like the big super platinum, multi-platinum national artists, they're dead. They're right now, they don't exist. You're seeing maybe gold artists, but you've seen a rise. And this is where these players that we're talking about are going to have their day if they will embrace the social media aspect that's become part of what you have to do. The rise of the regional artist, the regional stars, which is what we had before Elvis.
Right.
Elvis was the guy who rewrote the book on a national star.
Yeah.
What a big national and international star could be. And we've seen it play out. We're seeing all these regional bands that are something in a 3, 4, 5 state area, or now that we have social media, they can find their audience on a social media platform. Still, they may never sell or stream. I was actually listening to a Corey Wong interview tonight while I was running, and he was talking about how for RIAA, anyway, you know who I'm talking about, recording industry, they need you to have 1,500 streams to count as a sale for gold or platinum's purpose. That's, if you do the math, that's 1.5 billion streams just to reach gold. Or I'm sorry, for platinum, half that for gold. It's insane. It's impossible. When Taylor Swift put 1989 out, she was the only album that went platinum that year because she didn't put it on a streaming service. And she refused to. I don't know. I think the music industry's changed. And so it's not just the artists, it's the players that are having to adapt with it.
100%.
If you want gigs, if you want to play, if you want to record, you better be on Instagram. You better be there better be a video of you playing on YouTube somewhere, because that's your business card.
There's still no substitute to going out and playing shows, and radio is still massive. I agree with a lot of what you said, but I think you have to remember there are still Billie Eilishes in the world. I mean, she is a mega superstar. You can't even begin. I listen to NPR. That's the only radio I listen to. Mississippi Public Broadcasting, NPR. I don't listen to, and there's an oldies station here in the Shoals that plays like Les Paul and Mary Ford and
that's cool.
Roy Clark and old stuff. Yeah,
and it's still there, and there are still national artists. That part hasn't completely happened. They're not completely gone.
I mean, there's still Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift, and they haven't gone anywhere. I mean, who's the little Irish guy, the little redheaded dude that plays guitar and sings? He's real popular.
Oh, why? Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't care. It's not my thing. It's not the kind of music I listen to. But there's still a lot of people who listen to the radio. And in country music too, radio dominates everything. Radio, if you've ever wondered where the power is in the country music industry, it's in two places: radio and record labels, management companies, and then songwriters. That's why artists do pretty good money wise, but that's why country music is the literal worst. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes here, but contemporary Christian music is the same. They're in the same
I actually think they're worse. I just had
they
this
are
conversation
worse.
with another.
They don't pay you at all, period. But
and then if they start to see you're getting successful, they'll find a way to take more money from you.
Sure.
Country music, so many stories.
Yeah, it's horror stories. Yeah, country music is just as bad, though. They do not pay. Their pay for like their techs and their band and their crew is a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke compared to what rock and roll, R&B, hip hop, mainstream pop music, those bands. If you go out on the road with a band like Walk the Moon or 30 Seconds to Mars or Gary Clark Jr., some of these bands that I work for, the pay is like 6 times better than the literal biggest country music star on the planet will pay you. They pay garbage. It's
because the crew, the band that aren't the face of the artist.
Sure. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with it.
No, but if you're not that, you're fodder for the machine.
Sure. It's just I think my personal belief is that because so much money in country music is spent on radio, management, at record labels, they're cultivating an artist in country music. They put so much money into these people that, and it's the songwriters too now in country music. That's why on these albums, you see a minimum of 4 songwriters on every single song. Sometimes it's 7 or 8 songwriters on a song. It's just the stupidest.
There's a guy I went to MTSU with, who I actually listened to his episode on the Working Songwriter podcast recently. He's a guy by the name of Sean. I almost said Sean Mullen, not Sean Mullen. Sean McConnell. Killer songwriter, killer singer, killer musician. He was when he was in college. Like that wasn't something he learned in college. He just was.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about when he first got his first publishing deal in Nashville. He was like, you show up, you go in a room with someone you've never met before, and you're expected to churn out a song.
Yep.
Then
you do it every day.
Leave that room, you go back, you meet somebody else you've never met before, you're expected to write a song. And there aspect of, and he speaks very positively of it, but it's also how he makes a living. I don't make my living like that, so I'm just going to be a little more real about it.
How they do. I could never do that.
Never do it. I get that it builds a craft. It builds a skill, just like you, the first time you had to take frets out of a guitar and put new ones in, it probably didn't go that great the first time, did it?
Actually, I had beginner's luck. I had a great first refretting experience, but I refretted a Maple Neck Strat. It's kind of hard to mess one of those up, and I had an incredible guy teaching me too.
Well, there you go. But you still got better every time you did it.
Every single time.
A new trick every time you did it. Same thing with songwriting. Eventually, when you've been stuck in the machine, in the hamster wheel for long, I'm going to sound like I'm really super bitter about Nashville. I'm not bitter. I'm just realistic about it.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I don't make any illusions that I would have ever been anything in Nashville. I'm a decent guitar player, although Robert Plant once called me a great guitar player. So that's how I'm just going to live with that one. I haven't told that story on the podcast yet. We'll save that one for another day. That's a teaser. But I'm an okay songwriter. I'm an okay singer. I'm, according to Robert Plant, a great guitar player. I know I would have never made it in Nashville. That wasn't my thing. So I'm not bitter about it. But after 5-10 years of just being in the machine, you learn how to do it. You learn how to just spit them out.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's a template more than it is a creative expression anymore.
Well, a lot of the big artists, if you look at the people who are writing the songs, it's usually the same 3 or 4 people that are writing like all of the songs, and every now and again, there's like a new name in there somewhere, or like you'll have like some random kid who just, him and his buddy wrote a song and they sold it to a publishing company and it got picked up and it's on a record now, but yeah, man, there's so much money is invested in that at the end of the day, very little money is left over to pay. Well, first of all, most of the guys playing in the bands for these artists, I mean, shit, it's just it's really, it's like lightning. It's like being hit by lightning. I mean, you got picked out of a million other guitar players.
Right.
It's the equivalent of that. It's so much of it is about who you know. Although, again, let me just say this. I filled in for Maren Morris's guitar tech stage manager a few years back and met everybody in her band. I'm still really good friends with one of the guitar players in the band. World-class musicians. I mean, stack them up against anybody. They are incredible players, but they'll go out there and do it for not a lot of money. Yeah. And, in country music and in CCM, you don't get paid on your days off. You don't get paid on travel days. You get paid a day rate, and it doesn't matter if you're at some shithole country music festival in Manhattan, Kansas, where you're going to load in and load out at 3 different stages and play in the morning, middle of the afternoon, and at night in front of the headliner. It doesn't matter. You got paid the same that you would have gotten paid if you'd played some tiny little club in Nebraska. It does not matter. Whereas, I don't want to talk too much about this. But I mean, when I go out on the road and I work for the bands and the artists that I go out and work for one, the money is incredible. You get, the minute you leave your house, they start paying you. If you're on an airplane, in a car, on a train, doesn't matter. If you're on the road and if you're only doing 2 shows a week or 3 shows a week and every other day is a day off, you're getting paid regardless. If you're out there, you're getting paid. There. It should be.
Yeah. That's how it should be, especially at that level.
For sure.
Like, don't get me wrong. I've done the week and weekend, the grind, the marathon from Tallahassee to Mobile kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We're lucky if we actually made money on the trip. You know what I mean? We're lucky if we made $100 a night kind of thing.
Yeah, right. That ain't even money you're making. That's just $100 you didn't lose.
That's exactly right.
You're gonna spend it all the same, but at least you weren't down $100.
Exactly right. Yeah, my meals were paid for this week instead of
right.
And there's no real money in that either. But at some point, they've got to treat people like this is their job. You're taking, like, you go on the road. That isn't someone who, only on the gigs are you actually working. It isn't like they could pick up and leave and go do another job to make money while they're not doing that.
Right.
They're working for you the entire time you're out on the road.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's got to be treated that way.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why country music's like that. I really don't. And I don't know why the guys in the bands and why the road crew and why the techs don't fight for more money. I don't know why. I think a big part of it is that it's just part of the system, the machine. There's so many people. Every year I get called, and this isn't just I'm not like trying to brag on myself or prop myself up as being some, bad, some, like whatever, some hot shot or something. But every year without fail, some pretty big mid-level to pretty big country music camp will call me. My name gets put in a hat and they will call me and offer me a gig. And then, I'm just like, okay, yeah, cool. Well, what do you guys, what's it pay? And they're like, well, and they always try to sell it to you like it's like they're giving you like some great deal. They're like, well,
we're not paying you, but exposure.
They're like, it's salary. So you're going to get paid all year, except it's like $700 a week, comes out to like $40,000 or something for that year. I can make that in 2 months in a summer on the road with one of these other bands I work for. No, I'll make 3 times that much work doing my other gigs So no, thank you. Cool. Keep your salary. I mean, it's
the same job, doing the same job,
doing the same. Actually, yeah, and probably working harder. I mean, country music's weird, man. I mean, it's they play a ton of shows. They make a ton of money. First of all, I mean, they make so much money on the road.
I know they outsource. And this happens with most productions. Don't get me wrong. I've worked stage crew for theaters and just freelance. People call me, there's a show coming in. They need someone to run lights or they need someone to run whatever. Back, when I was in college and I needed the money that badly. But like we get a call. I think we did Lone Star at one of the theaters in Memphis. I can't remember. And like majority of that crew were like local sourced cheap labor. With the exception of like 2-3 guys that are part of their actual travel crew. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they hire out, and I get it. That's not the only place that's doing it, but the money they were paying even for that was so abysmally low.
Yeah.
It was fun to a 19-year-old kid who didn't know what the hell he was doing. And like, oh, I get to go work the Lone Star show. That's kind of interesting. Looking back, I'm like, I worked my ass off for 17 hours and I made like $150.
Right.
Know what I mean? It's like, Jesus.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. I mean, I don't think a lot of people, if I sound like I'm like complaining or like, I know I said a minute ago, like it's like $700 a week. That's a lot of money for some people.
That is.
But man, this ain't a kid's job either, man. I mean, you get off that tour bus at 6 a.m., 6:30 in the morning. All of the local hands are there waiting on you already.
Yep.
You got trucks to dump. If you're on a big tour, you got 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 20, 25 trucks back there, that all have to be unloaded. You have a stage to build, backline, lights, and audio package. I mean, you have millions of dollars worth of gear to unpack, put together, set up. This is all before 10 o'clock in the morning. A lot of times the headliners are going to come out there and start sound checking at around 11 or 11:30 a.m. lunchtime, like right at lunch. And then all the bands that are playing in front of the headliner, you slowly start setting their stuff up in reverse order, basically. Right. Headliner, then direct support, then the opener, and then the opener to the opener, That kid that's out there, that no one's ever heard of, that's going to get 25 minutes to play 4 songs, that kind of thing. And I've toured with those bands. I've been at every single level, but it's a lot of work. You do that. You're out there all day on deck. You get catering, you got dressing rooms, chance to take a shower, you get food's great. But then you do all that. You work up to a show. Then you have a show, then you pack, then when the show's over, you pack all that up. You're back on the tour bus at around 2:30 in the morning. You're pulling out of the venue parking lot. You're headed to the next venue. You're going to get about 4.5 hours of sleep. That ass is going to be right back up the next day doing it all over again. It seems like you're making a lot of money until you realize you're working 16, 18, 19, 20 hours a day. And sometimes, I mean, man, I've done tours. We did 7, 8, 9, 10 shows in a row. But we got a day off.
If you're lucky, the next day is a pure travel day, or there's just a day off.
And you get to sleep. You get that rest. You sleep, but you're on a tour bus,
right?
Heading down the highway.
Not the best sleep ever.
No, it's not.
I can sleep through anything. My wife gets on to me all the time. But I can sleep through anything anyway. But not everyone is like that. She, for example, can't sleep in a car at all.
Yeah, people like that. Yeah,
never make it. So it's just one of those things that. And again, you say you don't want to be complaining. You're not. It's just being realistic.
Being realistic. Totally.
I tell people all the time, everyone needs to be realistic about what's happening, about what's going on. About the things like peeling the veil back a little bit, because as long as the veil is there and as thick and heavy as it is,
sure,
people don't know better.
Yeah. Let's go back to, I want to bring up, I think you brought him up a little bit ago, or maybe I did, but I think a guy like Jason Isbell, and really even to a certain degree, like even a guy like Joe Bonamassa are in a lot of ways those guys are sort of, they are the future and also the spearhead. They've kind of invented this new way. You don't have a label.
Right.
You own the rights to all of your music. You own the masters. You make your own records. You have your own band. You tour that band. You become your own company. Everything you have is all under one roof.
And Bonamassa and his manager, the thing that they changed too, it's one of those things where he's sort of a controversial figure in the guitar and the music world. I get it. Nah, I don't care. I watched not a documentary, but it was like a feature thing on him at one point where I was really kind of anti Joe Bonamassa for a long time. Then I like watched him, and he's got like this self-deprecating humor about himself. He doesn't take himself as seriously as everybody thinks he does.
Sure.
Maybe occasionally some of the press releases his manager puts out take him a little more seriously than Joe does. But
sure.
One of the things that he changed that blew my mind when I heard about it is in the old model, you're like bands that go out, they're hired to play a venue and they get a percentage of the ticket sales, or they get a guarantee.
Yeah, or like a guarantee or something. Yeah, exactly.
Joe doesn't. Joe rents the venue and he does everything. He is concessions. He is merchandising. He is ticket sales. He decides who gets what cut of what.
Yeah.
Completely flipped the script on the model. And that's why he is making money hand over fist, selling shows at 1/10 of the capacity of the average Taylor Swift show.
Yeah.
And that's how he's changed the industry. Not everybody's realized that's what he's done yet, but artists are starting to take notice.
There's a few people there's a few other people out there in the world that do that. I want to say maybe Kevin Hart or Dave Chappelle. There's somebody out there that's a comedian. They will not fucking do the show unless they make money on every fucking thing in the house. Yeah. You're sitting there, you're watching Kevin Hart, you're at one of his comedy shows, you're eating a hot dog, you're drinking a beer from the concession stands. He's getting some of that. He's getting a fucking cut of that. He gets a cut of everything in the house. And see, a lot of people, I think in outside of this world don't realize, even I was totally unaware until I got into this whole thing, how much money is made at the merch tables every night.
It's insane.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
And in most cases, there's a split with the venue, which means the venue who has nothing to do. All they are is just the place you're playing the show.
The building that you're playing in.
Right. They have nothing to do with your music, your shirts, any of the shit you sell in your merch table.
Or the microphone stands either. You brought all that in.
Yeah. They get like a 30% cut, most of them, a 20 to 30% cut on all of that,
Crazy.
And I had a really good, I probably shouldn't be telling y'all this, but I have a really good friend of mine that ran merch for Taylor Swift. I'm going to ask you, I'll just ask you, what you just off the top of your head, what do you think she does a night in merchandise?
I really wish I even had, I can't even come up with a number that sounds right. There's nothing in my head. I have no idea.
Well, she's a badass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she does better than most, like way better than most. There was a time when I was out on the road with a band. I won't say their name. It doesn't matter. And they were doing around $35,000 a night in merch. I was like, dude, what? I thought that was like a lot of money.
Yeah.
T Swizzle does about $250,000 a night.
Goodness. That's how you afford. I can't imagine what her loadout looks like. I remember a friend of mine worked an NSYNC tour once.
Yeah.
They told me they had 98 semi trucks on that tour to carry everything. Taylor Swift's traveling show is way bigger than that.
Yeah.
I can imagine how many semi trucks of gear and crew, and that's how they afford it and still make money.
Exactly.
That's the only way.
Exactly. And that again, it's all, I don't even think this is what we were planning on talking about, but it's all this big, just continuing. You gotta make music that people really enjoy. Fuck whether it's good or bad. I mean, I have a preference.
Yeah.
You have to make music that people, I mean, man, I overhear sometimes, or like I hear people listening to like Cardi B, if that's how you say her name, or Meg the Stallion, or any of this new shit. I like Billie Eilish, but I mean,
me too.
But I don't have like her record. I just have heard some of her songs and I thought, damn, she's actually really, really, really good.
Yeah.
She's got a great voice too. But like I hear a lot of this stuff that's super popular. Man, I mean, I'm just like, what the fuck are y'all listening to? I'm just down to the stupidest fucking shit I've ever heard in my life. This is my personal opinion. But you know what? Millions of people buy that music. They download it, they buy it, they go to the shows, they buy merch. It all lives in the same universe. It all has to happen. I'm just a professional guitar tuner. That's all I am. I just get them in tune, run them out there, hand them off, make sure that nothing's broken, make sure the amps fire up, pedals work, clean them, restring them, tune them. I work on them here at home. I play guitar, and I try to put out, as far as my Instagram account is concerned, I just try to put out good content.
Yep.
Shit that other people who love guitar would find interesting.
Exactly.
And be into.
That brings it full circle. So we're gonna, because we don't want to be here all night. I don't want to keep you all night. I think you're headed to the coast tomorrow for something or other. I can't remember. I thought I saw something on Facebook. I thought you had something pop up for tomorrow. So, but maybe you don't. I mean, I may have misread something. Also, I have a habit of getting Facebook posts that are days old, and they first time. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Okay.
So awesome gear. That was actually how I first saw your Instagram. And the one in particular that I hinted at earlier, you bought a couple of guitars this week. You snagged a couple this week. And one of them is this sweet as shit, just ES335.
Yeah, it's a killer guitar
by Honeyboy Edwards.
It's so amazing. Since we're on camera, I'm gonna grab it real quick.
Yeah.
I won't play it or anything because I don't know how the audio, what it'll sound like. And this is probably, but since you're recording it live and you're doing this one on video, and you might put this out at some point, here it is.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I've got it. There's Honeyboy's signature. Oh wait, here we go.
Slide it over. There it is.
Yep. I've got here we go. Sorry, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I've got this good buddy of mine. His name is Drew Wynn. He's got a guitar shop called Guitar House of Tulsa. He sells vintage guitars to some of the biggest guitar players on the planet and collectors. And, Drew is also a phenomenal guitar player. He can sing his ass off. He's got such an incredible voice. He's a great dude. I've got a 1982 335 dot that I got from him. At a guitar show, and he bought a 1964 345 from me that I had bought, that I'd gotten from an estate, because I do some vintage guitar buying and selling when I can. But I'm not a guitar collector. I play guitar.
Yeah, exactly. You're not playing put them on a wall or in a vault. You're getting to play them.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I have to be able to play them to keep them. Otherwise, man, I mean, and I don't keep them all. And I don't even know what I'm doing with this one yet. I have no idea, what the plan is yet for this guitar. But I just love them. I love the way they look, the way they feel. I like to hold them. I love the way they sound. I love everything about them. But yeah, this guitar's got a really cool story. This was in Lamar Sorrento's private collection. If you've ever been in any barbecue restaurant or a bar or a club in Mississippi, you've probably seen some of Lamar Sorrento's paintings on the wall.
Oh yeah, I knew it. I thought I knew the name. I needed to be sure.
all the old blues guys, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty. I mean, he's painted everybody. He's an incredible artist.
Is he the artist that's in the Muddy Waters restaurant down in Hattiesburg?
Or most likely.
Probably.
It's very folky, almost childlike. It's cartoon.
Oh, but no. I know the one you're talking about now. Yeah.
He paints everybody. And I believe I think he plays guitar, but he also buys, sells, trades, like a lot of us. He's just he has a guitar, like a guitar collection that he moves things in and out of. And this was in his collection. I don't know how. This is a 1969 335 TDW, which means this guitar was originally walnut, and in certain places you can even still see some of the walnut finish.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about.
I put this guitar under a black light actually earlier this evening because I was blacklighting another guitar that I picked up at a local shop today. A black light will show you all kinds of things on a vintage guitar. It's quite a sight. They'll glow too, neon green like a booger. I mean, they're like somber. They look really, vintage guitarists look really cool under a black light. If anybody's still listening, an hour 20 minutes into this, if you have never blacklit a guitar, go to Walmart and buy a black light, put it in a dark room, turn it on, and pull all your guitars in there. You'd be shocked at what you'll find. You might also find out if some of your guitars have been refinished, if they've been repaired and they were hid really well. A black light will show you a lot of things. I think that this guitar was stripped of its walnut finish and resprayed with like a nitro clear coat, or maybe even stained this blonde. I don't know if this is just the maple was so blonde that it looks blonde.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was stained, but whatever was done to this guitar was done a long, long time ago, because this thing lights up under the black light. It should not do that theoretically, but it does. So that was weird. I was not expecting that. So that leads me to believe that what was done to this guitar was done a long time ago, probably in the 1970s. At some point, Lamar got it. It pretty much has no original parts to speak of. I mean, the harness and maybe the switch. Oh, another neat little thing is that where the switch tip is, the pickup selector switch, this little piece right here is kind of like, you can tell that it was gold at one time, and it's completely blown away. So this would have been a TDW walnut with gold, all original gold hardware.
Crazy.
Of course, all of that
gone.
But
player's grade, as we call them.
Do I now?
Player's grade, as people like to say.
Oh, man, big time. But you know what? No repairs, no breaks, nothing wrong with the neck heel, nothing like that. No headstock repair. No volute. If you know anything about late 60s 335s, in 1965 and 1965, they shrink the nut down from 1 11/16 down to 1 9/16. It's skinnier.
Yep.
But they change over to chrome hardware. But for the most part, the guitars really stay in a lot of ways the same. They get rid of the stop bar. They end up with this trapeze. This thing had a Bigsby on it.
Yeah, I've got a Gibson that has the trapeze on it that I love that.
So, but at the end of 1969, they put this big volute on the back of the neck. They go to 3-piece necks. They just do a whole bunch of other changes. The necks become maple instead of mahogany.
Yeah.
So this guitar is pre all of those transitions, but it's like a 65 to 69, that little time frame Gibson. And then so at some point, Lamar gets the guitar, and he had Honeyboy actually paint his signature. The signature is painted. It's not
that's so cool.
I thought that he had signed it with a Sharpie marker, but he had him paint it on there. So and I did some obviously Honeyboy passed away in 2011.
Right.
I can't authenticate that with him, but I was able to find some pictures of his signature. If this isn't his signature, whoever did it did a hell of a job, because there's a few things that he does that are so intrinsic to his signature, but mostly the irony is that in his last name, the Edwards, the E almost looks like a C. So it almost looks like Honeyboy Cowards.
Yeah, it's like a C with a dot or a little flash.
He does that on everything he's ever signed. That's so indicative of his signature. So I really, even though I can't prove it and I can't ask him, I do think that he signed the guitar. It's a player grade, late 60s 335. Drew, my buddy Drew, sweetheart, sold it to me at literally like a no-brainer price.
Yeah. Again,
it's stripped, non-original pickups, non-original hardware. I mean, nothing on the guitar is original anymore. But it's all here, and it's signed by this just Mississippi blues legend, this icon, and this basically like probably one of the most authentic storyteller. All of the people who've ever done, all of the historians who've ever tried to collect archival material for Mississippi blues history, David Honeyboy Edwards was just a preeminent source.
And that was why we talked about his book earlier, The World Don't Mean Nothing, which was I wish I could remember off the top of my head the authors that worked with him, but essentially all they did, I love this mentality. They sat down with him, set a mic up, and let him just start telling stories.
Sure.
And then when they wrote the book, they literally just transcribed what he said, occasionally cleaned up maybe duplicate parts of stories, and then just put it in chronological order.
Yeah.
When you read that book, you are reading how Honeyboy Edwards spoke, and it is amazing.
I bet, man. I've got to get it. I haven't read it. I'm going to get it and read it. I've got it. Yeah.
Good.
Because, I mean, there's the thing that's cool about Honeyboy is, he was with Robert Johnson the night that Robert Johnson was poisoned, was killed. Exactly. There's like 3 gravestone, like headstone markers for Robert Johnson in various places in Mississippi. He's not buried in a single goddamn one of them.
Right.
David Honeyboy Edwards is one of the only guys on planet Earth that could actually take you to where Robert Johnson is really buried.
Yep.
In the middle of a field on private property. I mean, I've actually been there. There's a few other people. There's some guys in Mississippi. Yeah. It's almost like a secret that's kind of passed on. You probably have been there too.
I've actually not been to it, but I know where it is.
You know where it is. You have to, it's hard to go there. You have to get explicit permission. The guy that owns the land where he's buried, of course, he doesn't want anybody coming out there.
He doesn't want the circus.
He doesn't. Well, that, and I mean, theoretically, you're not supposed to have a dead person buried on your, there's
that too. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all kinds of, and I know there's been some people who've asked to come out there and dig to see if they can find his body. I mean, just shit like that, dude. So the guy that owns the land, if you don't know someone who's really close to him, who can call him on a cell phone and be like, hey, I got a guy, he wants to see it. He wants to see the spot. Can I take him to the spot?
Out there otherwise.
The guy will reluctantly be like, yeah, I guess, make it quick. Tell him, I'll deny he's never been there. I don't know what he's talking about. He's not real open about, they do not want people to know about it. That's what I'm trying to say. And a lot of people don't actually even get to go on this guy's land. There's a road that drives by and you can point, you can go, he's pretty much buried over there.
Yeah. And for me, it sort of is one of those things that, like, what's the point? I mean,
it gives a shit, right? I mean,
if you want to pay homage, you want to pay respects, I get it. You can do that at any of the other 3.
I love the one that's at the Mount Zion Church on Money Road.
Yeah.
Right outside of Money, Mississippi, that's the one to go to. That's the one I tell everybody, go to that one. And you know, I don't want to get into trouble here, but you're pretty damn close actually to where he's really buried when you're at that one.
Well, that's because that makes sense. It's the closest location to where he would have been when he got poisoned. It just makes sense. But I'm pretty sure that's the one that Clapton funded the headstone for.
He may have.
Don't quote me on that one. I may have gotten that story completely jacked up. But yeah, so in fact, I've got right here that this book, I guess I should pitch this one a little bit. This is Brother Robert. This is the book that came out last year. It was written by Preston Lauterbach. I only remember because I've got the book in front of me. With Annie Anderson, which was Robert Johnson's sister.
Yeah.
So it's her stories of Robert. I love the fact that we've lived with two pictures of Robert Johnson for almost 100 years. And then she casually pulls this photo out of a shoebox.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, I've had this. She said, I knew I had this. I knew what I had. She's like, it wasn't I realized I had a photo that nobody else had and everybody else wanted another photo.
Right.
She wanted her chance to tell her story. Sure. And if you haven't read this book yet, this one's a good one too, because this one's very much it's not the mystique of the big blues legend and mystery and all that. This was my brother.
Right.
This was who he really was, not the narrative everybody else is built around. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and Robert, who went by various names in his life anyway, you know, he stole that story from Tommy Johnson. I love that in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, everybody thinks, oh, Tommy Johnson in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is supposed to be Robert. No, he's Tommy Johnson.
Tommy Johnson. Exactly. I love that so much, man.
Yeah, nobody gets it. I have to tell
nobody gets it. You got to know a little bit about Mississippi blues to know that that's Tommy Johnson, who's actually the guy that
told everybody who wanted to hear it that he sold his soul to the devil to
play. Right. Kind of, but I mean, there's blues is probably the most copied musical idiom of all time.
Yep.
Period. I mean,
by far.
I mean, every lick, every lyric, every song, I can't think of anybody, a single person that's done anything that original in blues music ever, because it's basically been the same.
Half of the 29 songs by Robert Johnson we have were covers, you know.
You hear, I just remember like as a kid when I would hear like the same song, like with different lyrics, same vocal melody and everything, and be like, hold on, isn't that, wait, what? You'd be so confused because like you would never hear anybody in modern music like do that just blatantly, like, man, I'm gonna take those chords, I'm going to take that vocal melody and I'm going to make it my own.
Everything else.
Yeah, right.
Or, you see it a little bit in country music, but this used to be the norm. Somebody put out a record, and this happened in blues all the time, but it also happened in rock and roll and pop. Somebody put out an album or a single, most of the time a single. Singles start doing really well, so record labels would hire other singers to cover that song, because it was still very much in the time period where it wasn't the performer that was as famous as the song itself.
Yeah.
And so you end up with all these millions of covers of songs. So blues singers had hit on a song that everybody liked, so everybody's got to cover a version of it. You got someone like John Lee Hooker recorded over 100 albums under dozens of names.
Sure.
That did the same thing. It's the blues world is so weird in that early history of how it was working. There's a bunch of other great books. I'm going to stop before this becomes a book podcast, but there's a bunch of other great books that talk about the early days of the blues and how the first real like superstars of the blues were not men. They were the female vaudeville singers.
I know, man. I know. I was just about to say, one of the saddest things in the whole world to me is how many Black American artists were completely had their art ripped, stolen away from them. popular white pop artists of their time would take a black artist song, you know, take the publishing rights, take everything, pay them pennies on the dollar for it, and make huge hits out of it.
That's why Willie Dixon was so huge. He was the first black artist, African-American, to start to understand how copyright worked.
Right.
Wrong. He still never made what he should have made.
Sure.
He was the one that sued Zeppelin over a whole lot of
$2 million. Yeah. I think he did get a little bit of money there. You're right. You're right.
Best records, he should have made way more money than he was making in publishing and in songwriting royalties. But he started to understand things.
Yeah.
That's why his book is so good too. He was the guy who started the trend of American blues artists going to Europe. The Rolling Stones came over specifically to meet Willie Dixon, and they struck up a friendship, and they started a pipeline of blues musicians going to Europe.
Yep.
It's so cool. There's so much of that blues history that you got to get really deep in it to understand and to know. And even then you got to weed through a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, you do.
And a lot of the lore and a lot of the legend.
Yeah.
Like you said, how we got here, Honeyboy Edwards was one of the last living guys who knew Robert Johnson. Like exactly. If you were in that blues scene, I am 2 degrees from Robert Johnson.
Exactly.
Because I knew Honeyboy and Honeyboy knew Robert.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
It's such a wild world. And those guys are still around, those legendary figures. I can remember sitting in the music store in Clarksdale with T Model Ford, just sitting around.
I played a show with him one night and
we were just buying him whiskey so he'd keep playing guitar and hanging out in the music store. He's probably drunk before he got to his gig that night. And it's just such a cool way to do things. And
that story, that night, it's such a weird thing. You're just in the right place at the right time. This was probably in 2010 or 11, maybe. I was living in Oxford, Mississippi. This guy, Chris, owned this little bar called Two Stick, and it was a great venue. I played there a ton of times. He and I were buddies. He sent me a text message. No, he didn't. I knew T Model Ford was going to be there that night, and I just went there. I just showed up to see him play. It was just him, and his grandson was playing drums.
Yes,
and T was had a stroke. He could barely play, really could like barely sing, but he was there at the gig anyway. Chris, the owner, kind of came up to me. He kind of fumbled through a few songs and just was not going very well. Chris was like, "Hey man, can you go up there and tune his guitar for him?" And I was like, "Yeah," because Chris and I knew each other pretty well. I mean, I'd played at Two Stick a bunch. I said, "Yeah, man. Yeah, of course." So I just went up there and I just kind of very politely, I was like, can I tune that guitar for you? And he was just like, yeah, go for it. He was real cool about that. I said, you want me to tune it? It was so bad out of tune. I couldn't tell if it was in standard or in an open, open E or whatever. I said, do you want me to tune it up in standard or do you want it open? Do you want it like, so you can just hit the strings? Like, he said, yeah, open it up. I said, I got you. I know what you're talking about. Put the guitar in open E. He played it like that for a while, but then he motioned me back up there and he said, tune it back the other way. I said, okay, all right, fair enough. I knew what he meant. I pretty much felt like he probably wanted it put in standard. So I put the guitar in standard, and then I think I went to hand it back to him. He said, "No, you play. You can play. You play." And so I said, I just was like, "What do you want me to play?" And he goes, "Play some blues," And so I did. Of course, I did I did something like that. I swear to God to you. He looked at me. I'm plugged into his amp and everything. It's loud. Yeah. He looked at me, goes, "That ain't no fucking blues." Just like that, dude. I was like, damn. I mean, okay. I don't know what to do. He said, he looked at his grandson. He said something like, "Teach him something, show him something." And his grandson just started playing, and me and him just locked in right away. And I bet we played the same 3 or 4 hill country droning, same chords for the next 45 minutes while he sat there in a chair with him. Again, he had a stroke. Like,
right. Yeah, he wasn't getting around so well those years.
Yeah, right. I mean, but he sang and hollered, and he pulled he had a harmonica. He pulled it out and played a little bit of harp. And I played guitar pretty much the rest of that night for him. This is a thing. What happened after the gig is something that I'm proud of. And I also it's one of those things it's one of those moments that I had an offer laid in my lap, and I kind of regret that it's one of those things where you're like a really good fucking dude, and then you regret being like a good guy. His wife, who's significantly younger than him.
Yes.
She comes up to me and she says, T wants you to have his guitar. And this was that black PV Razor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he wants you to have his guitar. And I said, oh, no. I can't. I'm not taking his guitar. She goes, no, he don't want you to take it. He said you sounded good on it. He wants to know if you want to buy it. And I said, well, first I was like, what's he, my brain I was like, well, what does he want for it?
Yeah.
He was like, I feel like I remember she said, would you do 250 for it? 250 or maybe even 200. And dude, I was just like, in my mind, I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to have to go find an ATM and get them cash. This is,
right.
There's no Venmo. There ain't no Venmo or they're not taking fucking PayPal.
Right.
They're wanting $200 cash. And I just said, and then and I thought about it for a minute. And then I was just like, I can't do that. He needs his guitar.
Right. He needs his guitar.
He's got to play gigs. And she tried it. She was like, well, he's got other guitars he likes better than this one. But again, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is like that iconic guitar that he's pictured with, this black PV guitar. That's like, I mean, that's like was his main guitar for in his better part of his healthier years. And so I just did the right thing, and I was like, I was just like, no. I'm not buying his guitar. He needs his guitar. Tell him I appreciate it. I'd love to have it, and I think I even told him. I mean, and it played great. Someone had changed the strings and set the guitar up for him, and it played good. And it was cool as shit. They're wild looking, and
they are nutty. And
I couldn't even believe he had it at the gig. I was like, damn, he brought that PV Razor guitar with him.
Yeah, and he definitely got to a point there at the end where it was rough. It was rough to see him in that kind of shape. And
but they
tried to tell him that you could not tell him that he was not in a shape to play or do it.
Oh, sure.
No, because he's no, I'm doing it. I can imagine someone tried to talk him out of playing that gig. I can imagine someone had a moment.
Yeah. No, he showed up. He was there.
Yep.
But man, I tried. I told him I just was like, I just felt like it just wasn't the right thing to do. And I don't regret that. But I did. I think I feel like Dan Arbach really tried to hunt that guitar down. I think he was trying to find that guitar after T Model passed away.
Yeah.
And I think the story he got is that someone in his family stole it and pawned it, or who the fuck knows what happened to it. And the only thing I guess that I regret is that that moment, and I've got, what's wild is I have some videos deep in the recesses of my Facebook profile, my page. There's some video of me playing with him that night, and I've got pictures too.
Oh, wow.
There was a girl there that night that I was friends with, and she had the wherewithal to take pictures on her iPhone, on her iPhone 1, on her iPod, basically. She had the she took some pictures, and I still have those. But I was like that close to getting that guitar. And truthfully, had I bought that guitar that night, I would still own it. And at some point, I would have just donated it to like the Mississippi Blues Museum or done something. That's the kind of person I am. That's what I would have done with it.
And that's where that should be. That should be somewhere.
Yeah, it should. That's the only regret though that I have. I mean, I'm glad I didn't buy it. That was the right thing to do.
Right.
Not just be like, hell yeah, here, I'll give you $200, and be, and be, but man.
And that was pretty close to, because I looked it up because I had to be sure. Because 2011, 2012, he passed in 2013,
right.
Which it blows my mind that it's been almost 8 years since he passed. But
it was like early 2011, probably like February or March, maybe January, something like that. It was in early 2011.
That's so crazy that it's been that long. Well, I'll tell you what, we are hitting the hour 45 mark.
Yeah.
It marks officially the longest podcast I've done. And I feel like there are a whole lot more stories we could tell. So we're going to have to do this again for sure.
Let's do it again, and then we'll just only talk guitars next time. This is like,
I have a feeling that'll never actually work. We'll start with a guitar, and it'll spawn a story.
Yeah.
And it'll spawn.
We'll talk guitar tech repair work and what I love about that, and we'll talk guitar buying and selling, trading, collecting. What I love about that. We'll come back around to it.
I'm gonna mention this real fast just because I thought about it earlier, and I may never think of it. We're talking about. As a musician, you got to be present to win. You got to be there. You got to be in the scene. I've got friends so I paid for basically all of my spare cash and spending money my last year of college. I went back to college late. So I graduated college in 2010. My entire last year, I just bought and sold gear. That's how I made my spare money. You could still find pawn shop deals. You could still make a little bit of money on eBay.
Totally.
The buying and selling on guitar forums was kind of big. You had things like the Gear Page. You had the Seymour Duncan forums. You had guitar.com back then was an active forum.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd buy and flip gear. And so that's what I do. And so that's just a thing that still happens. You keep your finger on the pulse of that kind of market. You're there when the deals start happening, and still have friends who are like, I got a deal recently on what did I buy that they looked at me like, I can't even remember anymore, but I got this deal on something, and one of them looked at a buddy of mine, looked and said, how does this even happen? He's like, I don't know how you do that. I said, because I'm always watching. I'm always paying attention. The deals are there.
Sure.
Find it. Like the one I found today, the amp that we're not even going to talk about because it'll start a whole other diatribe. We'll talk about it another time. It's just, if you're attentive, if you're paying attention, you're present, you're going to find them. There's there.
Yep.
So this is the part where I'm going to mention how folks can find us. I'm going to put your links for all your social media also down in the description below, so people can find you on Instagram and Facebook. And
very cool.
I find the links work really well instead of people trying to go back and listen and try to find what we say. Because like my email address my personal email address that I never should have gotten, but it sounded great when I was 18, but I have to spell it out to everybody anytime I ever use it. Y'all can, you can email the podcast at 40wattpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on social media. We're on Instagram, 40 Watt Podcast, Facebook, or 40 Watt Podcast. You can call the show if you have a question. I've only had one call so far, and it was a wrong number. Someone trying to get the parents of a child in a school district. I really hope that school district finally found the real parents, but it was not me. But you can call that number and leave a voicemail at 662-546-0615. We'll figure out what to do with those. Sometimes if I get enough questions in a certain category, I'll make sure I find the guest that fits those questions, or I'll just ask random questions of all my guests anyway. If you enjoy the podcast, please make sure to like, favorite, follow. I'm trying to remember what all the different things you do on all the social media are. Subscribe, leave a review. I got my first Audible review. Apparently the podcast is on Audible, which is an audiobook podcast. So like you can rate each individual episode for narrator, story, and something else. I got 4 stars in 2 of them. 2, somebody didn't like my story, the narrative. So whatever. I think we tell great stories here.
Yeah.
So leave us a review, share us with your friends. We really appreciate it. And last but not least, I have started a Patreon, which 2 hours into a podcast is probably a little late to be mentioning a Patreon, but Patreon is going to go to cover some of our, hosting fees, software fees. We're using StreamYard for the first time, and that's not free. I wish it were, but it's not. But that goes to that. Got my first Patreon subscriber. I'm going to give a shout out to Kyle Harris. He is number 1. So if you want to be number 2, subscribe to our Patreon. There are a couple of different levels. I do donate 25% of all of the proceeds of Patreon to charities like the Delta Blues Museum, like St. Jude Children's Hospital. So those are going to go to charities and not me. Because again, this isn't my full-time job. I have another source of income. I'm just trying to cover some of the expenses that come with doing this, and maybe one day travel expenses to actually go do interviews in person, which is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Desmond, I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll get you on again. Obviously, especially while you're not on the road still. It's much easier when you're not on the road. So I'm gonna have to come over to Muscle Shoals soon. I've not been to the big music store over there.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it now.
Guitar Boutique. Yeah, it's got a great shop.
Yeah, great shop. So y'all take care of yourselves, be good to other people, and try and make a little bit of noise. We'll be back next time.